this week we will deal with the Learn to Create Databases unit. And actually it's creating and using databases. And so let's take a moment and sort of finish up last week. I know that we kind of left off with OneDrive and the need to synchronize our files to our home computers from OneDrive. So let me share my desktop here. Alrighty, so at my desktop, and you can kind of imagine you being at your desktop. What you're going to do is in your type here to search box along the taskbar at the bottom of your screen, you're just going to type in OneDrive. And it should come up in the best match at the top of your list. You simply click on it. And when you click on it, it's going to, of course, not for me because I already have mine synchronized, but for you, it's going to come up with a OneDrive window where you supply your KCTCS email address. Okay, so whatever, I think it's your first initial, last name, and then 4 digits at kctcs.edu. Once you do that, it may prompt you for your password, the same password you use to get on MyPath. And once that happens, you'll be able to synchronize your files, meaning use your files that you create for the class. You'll be able to put those in your OneDrive cloud storage and use them anywhere. So if you have to go on vacation or, out of town for any reason, you still have access to all of your files. Okay. So that was kind of a holdover from last week. Hopefully that makes sense. So last week we sort of learned a little bit about how to drag and drop using our File Explorer and also our OneDrive. So once you set up OneDrive, you're going to see, if you click on File Explorer, you're going to see OneDrive-KCTCS in your list of files and drives here in File Explorer. To expand that, you would simply click on the right pointing arrow next to OneDrive KCTCS, and all of your files and folders should appear. Well, at the top level, just your folders are going to appear. Of course, each folder has its own little arrow that you click on to expand what is in that folder. Of course, you can always click on the folder itself to see all of the files. Your files appear here in your main content window. And that's how you basically would launch any of your files from within your OneDrive. Does this make sense? If it doesn't, we can definitely go over it again. Just let me know. All right, so I guess that I'll share my Word document so that we can get started with the database and sort of framing our minds about what databases do. All right, so the four things that we're going to cover today are at the core of what databases are. So, what are computer programs? What do programmers do? What do computers do? And what is the role of databases in the technology ecosystem? So we went through already sort of understanding what binary code is, right? So we sort of use the ASCII table to convert our first name into binary code. All right. And it's important that you understand what binary code is. Binary code is the language of your computer, the machinery. Okay, and as we learned in, I believe it was the system software SimBook, it sort of glossed over the idea of firmware. And so your firmware is even more important, I would say, than your system software or your Windows 10 software. Now, the reason that is because your firmware is what communicates with the hardware. Okay, and your hardware, its language is zeros and ones. And so what computer programs do is it sort of interprets what we say as an end user and relays that information to the firmware. But again, the firmware is just dealing in zeros and ones. Okay. So if we can understand that, that will help us to sort of frame our thoughts around, you know, what a programmer does, what software technology is, okay, which leads us basically to databases. Okay. Does that make sense? Okay. So a computer program is a sequence of instructions written using a computer programming language to perform a specified task by a computer or a device that contains a computer. Okay. Now these mobile devices that, sorry for the feedback here. Let me close. These mobile devices that we use and basically have at the end of our fingertips every single day. Some of us even sleep with it, unfortunately. Um, you know, those are basically, you know, full on computers. They have the power that, you know, the same amount of power that powered uh, us going to the moon, okay, back in the late 60s. And so everyone has them at the tip of their fingertips now. And I'm sorry, I'm trying to disconnect from this app. Okay, so we know that um, the computer program is a set of instructions. Well, who is responsible for, you know, making our programs that we use like Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and Access, making those available
I'm
for us to
typing down.
use?
Okay. Are you want me to? You on that?
I have students, you know, on-campus students who think that if they should just show up.
Uh oh. Oh.
All right, so sorry about that. So who is responsible for creating a computer program? A programmer. And a computer programmer basically deals with high-level programming languages. Okay, and these languages are easily read by humans. Okay, and at the most basic, which, a language that all employers basically require. We have an advisory committee that consists of employers all over the city of Louisville. Um, and basically what they tell us is at the minimum, we need all employees to know Python. Python is, a high level programming language or English-like um, program, okay, that helps a programmer to create a program that interacts with the user. Okay, now there are others such as Java and C++. Now you may be like, well, what does this have to do with a database? Okay, great question if you're thinking of that. Now, most of the tasks of your computer involve some kind of data, okay? Data or data, however you want to refer to that. So processing the data and outputting some kind of data, okay? Now, if you think about the 4 functions of a computer that was given in that first computing basics unit, right? We learned that there are basically 4 different things that a computer does, right? So that's input, process, store, and output, right? So if you think this is basically what you're doing with a database as well, someone has to input the data, right? And then we do complex calculations in our queries, okay, to get our databases to process the information or the data. And then how do we get the output of the data? We get it in the form of a form or a report. Okay, so all of this is related just on the basic level, how programs are created. Okay, that's not just a database program, but all programs. All programs are database driven. For example, I'm using Microsoft Word right now. Okay, if you look up at the very top of the window, we see what is called the title bar. We see the quick access toolbar here that has the save button on it. And we see all of these nice little buttons that go across the ribbon. All right, we see the tabs. Now, if we go through each of these applications, Microsoft Word, Microsoft Excel, Microsoft Access, Microsoft PowerPoint, we're seeing some of the same buttons, some of the same tabs, okay? Some of the same, icons throughout each of these programs, each of these applications. And that is because Microsoft is a master of simplifying things, and they reuse a lot of the things that they create. So that's really why they are so popular and basically are driving the computer software industry, right? Because number one, their programs are easy to use. They're relatively intuitive, meaning that it's easy to understand how to use it. even if you're not necessarily trained to use it. Okay. And so they tend to reuse a lot of the things that they create. For example, again, I'm in Microsoft Word. I'm just going to click on the file. And what file does is take us to the backstage. Okay, backstage view. All of these components that you see along the left side here are reused in all of the applications in the Microsoft 365 ecosystem. So all of these things, home, new, open, info, save as, print, you're going to see those consistently throughout all of their applications. Also, when you first launch the program, regardless of what program it is, you're going to see some things that are very familiar, right? You're going to see a list of recent documents, okay, and that you have used on your computer. And then you're going to see a list of what are basically templates, okay, for you to launch if you wanted to do so. Okay, so you're going to see this as a consistent sort of thing throughout using all of these applications. So I'm just going to return to the document that we were talking about before. Are there any questions before I continue? You have to take yourself off mute if you have any questions, or you can post it in the chat. So let's see what someone is saying here. Okay. All right. So I don't see any questions. I just see conversations for now. Um, okay. So let me continue. Still on the idea of creating programs and working with data, processing the data, and outputting some kind of data. Now, computer programs are everywhere in our society. We talked about these mobile devices, okay? One little common piece of jargon that everyone is using nowadays is the whole word of app. App is just short for application. Okay, so you have desktop applications and then you have mobile applications. Behind all of those applications, regardless of if it's mobile or if it's a desktop application, there's some programming behind that. All right. And programming, if you think about programming is basically to solve some problems, right? That folks are having, or to make things that we need to get done easier, and just basically being more creative about getting us to the end result. Okay, so effective computer programs require knowledge of programming language features and syntax. Okay, that just means the language, the specific language of a program. All right, now behind Microsoft Access, which is the database program that we're learning, there are basically two programming languages that you can use to build tables, queries, forms, and reports, which are the main objects of a database. Those programming languages are structured query language and Visual Basic for applications, okay, or VBA for short, okay? So it involves problem solving, right? Programming, that's what it's all about. How would we know that we needed a word processor, right? Because we had the problem of learning how to type on a typewriter, right? And having to correct things with whiteout, an actual liquid. I used that, in high school. And it was a very, involved sort of, set of tasks to learn on a typewriter. Um, the one thing that typewriters did for us was it provided enough frustration to make someone make it more computerized, okay, or more program enabled. And so that's how the whole concept of a word processor or a word processing program, how that became possible. Okay, so a programmer would need to have excellent problem solving skills, okay, and also some knowledge of the subject area that they're looking to solve, okay, that problem for. Um, and so you think about Microsoft Access. You think about, well, why would someone need to create a database? Well, if you kind of think about how you interact with databases on a daily or weekly basis, right? Then it sort of becomes a little bit more clear. All right. Now, what kind of databases do we use on a daily? And let me share another window here. So I'm going to go to MyPath. And initially, when you get to MyPath, of course, if you've never logged into MyPath before, you're going to, of course, see a username and password field. Okay. Believe it or not, this entire screen here, where you would type in a username or password, this is a form, a database form, meaning it is a form that leads to a database. It checks the database to see if what you've entered or what you've keyed into the form is correct according to the record that's in the database. So what database does MyPath use to figure out if what you've typed into these two fields is correct? Does anyone know? What database does this form use to see if what you've entered is correct? In short, you've heard of Campus Solutions, right? Well, Campus Solutions is the student interface to a database that we use throughout KCTCS, and that is called PeopleSoft. Okay, so Campus Solutions is basically the student interface, okay, or the student database. Okay, so when you filled out the application um, that you received from the Urban League, and it asked you for some information such as your first name, your middle initial, your last name, maybe your phone number, your address, your social security number, things like that. Okay. All of that data was keyed in or inputted into Campus Solutions, the database, under the student portion of that database. And so your file became a record in Campus Solutions, in the students database. So you're listed at, or in the students table. So you're listed in the students table as a Jefferson Community and Technical College student. Okay, so that's how you got a student ID number. You got a kctcs.edu email address. Okay, so hopefully it's starting to make sense. So when they gave you the instructions to set up your username and your password, okay, you went through and then it gave you your actual um, email address. Okay, so, and I'm just going to type mine in. Actually, when I first started, because I first started 20 years ago, 20 something years ago as a staff member, I came in with this username. Okay. And so this is still something that I can use. All right. But most faculty will use their first name and their last name, their first name dot their last name as their email address. Okay. But from what I understand, this is still available to me. They just have both the same username or the same password. Let's see if it works. I haven't used it in years. Well, it doesn't work anymore. Okay, so I could just type in my email address. Okay, so I'm guessing this is the primary one. And you see it sort of gave me, some information that, hey, this user ID or password is incorrect, right? How did it know that? Because it's comparing what I typed into those two fields to what's in the table, the employees table, okay, for that username and password. It couldn't find it. All right. So that was actually a great example, right, of what the benefits of having a database to compare some data to, you know, figure out if it's authentic or not. Okay. So let me try to log in. And so this opens up my path that all of you have access to as well when you log in using your KCTCS username and password combination, right? Are there any questions? Any questions? You have to take yourself off mute if you have any questions. Or you can, type into the chat. Okay, now on this screen here, this is basically just giving me the ability to stay signed in. Basically, ever so often your computer, not your computer, but the database basically wants to verify that you're still actively using, the resources for the organization. So if you want to stay signed in, meaning, you don't have to constantly use a username and password, you would simply just click on don't show this again and then click yes. Okay, and that will keep you logged in. So every time you come to mypath.kctcs.edu from your, from your home computer or from your work computer, however you're accessing the course. And so for us, this MyPath is just a part of what is called SharePoint. Okay, and so you get to see something that not a lot of students normally would see. Okay, so these are all of, all of the different sites that I've been to meaning internal sites. This is, not involving the necessary Jefferson website. This is, sorry about that. Usually I have that phone turned off. So I do apologize for that. And so also you see, if we go down the list here, we've got frequent sites. Okay. These are things that maybe are on Microsoft Teams. Okay. Just other resources. Okay. So you see my path over here where it says recent. Okay. Any training that we do internally, is all sort of conducted on the back end, if that makes sense. So on your end, you would see like the options to go to Blackboard, just like I would see here if I selected my path. But behind the scenes, we have access to, everything internally. So this would be referred to as our intranet. Okay. So it's the internet, but internal to us, if that makes sense. Any questions? Any questions? Okay, so I'm just going to tap on my path. And this is more familiar. This would be more familiar to you than, the SharePoint site that I was just at. Okay, this is what you're used to. Seeing Blackboard, email, of course. How do they know your first name? It all goes back to the database. Okay, that Campus Solutions database that has your record in it. So they know when you log in, right? So here's that PeopleSoft Campus Solutions. View and update student records, enrollment, and class information. Okay, so Campus Solutions is part of PeopleSoft. Okay, now you might see it as, I believe it's called Student Self-Service or something like that on your MyPath. Okay, but of course you have your email, your Blackboard, and somewhere down here is OneDrive. Okay, now you have a completely different list of tiles, and the tiles and how they appear depends on your role as identified in Campus Solutions. Okay, so your role in Campus Solutions is as a student. So you're going to see all of the student tiles or the little squares that are relevant to students. For me, I see all of the student tiles as well as all of the faculty tiles that I need to do the rest of my job. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. Now, if I was another employee, but maybe I wasn't faculty, I wasn't an instructor, I would see a completely different list of tiles than what are on, what's on my path right now. My tiles appear based upon my role at the institution and what all I need to accomplish. Okay, now technically any faculty or staff member at Jefferson or any of the other 15 Kentucky Community and Technical colleges around the state, we can take classes. Okay, so technically we're students, right? So we can take classes at any of those institutions, just like you can. The difference is we have other duties. So that's why we have so many other tiles, and the list goes on and on. Look at that. So while, it seems very simplistic on your end, of the tiles that you see, there's a lot more that's going on behind the scenes. So hopefully that makes sense. All right, are there any questions? Any questions so far? Okay, so I'm going to go to Blackboard and go into our class on Blackboard. And yes, Blackboard is behind the scenes a database, right? So that's why you're able to see the courses that you're enrolled in from semester to semester. In those courses are different instructors, okay? So Blackboard talks to Campus Solutions and gets your information as a student, your instructor's information, okay, as faculty. So there's an instructor's table in Campus Solutions, there's a student's table, okay? And does anyone want to venture to guess how instructors and students are, I guess, related? Anyone want to take a guess? How are instructors and students related?
Both the learners.
Both are learners, yeah. Both can take classes, right?
Right.
Yeah, you're correct. Okay. Any other ways instructors and students are related? Both are learners. That is certainly correct. And thanks. Was that Shanae? Okay. Shanae, are you driving?
Always.
Bless your heart. Okay. Be safe. Okay. So, but thank you. Um, so instructors, each class has to have an instructor, right? Some classes, depending upon the complexity of the class, some some classes may have a couple instructors. Okay. Um, how else could instructors and students be related? What about okay, so each instructor or each class has to have an instructor. Each student has to have a class, right? Do you get it? Like, so the relationship is set up at the table level in a database, okay? So they have to have something in common. So that's why I'm using the word related, okay? So there are instructors or an instructor for every class, and every class should have some students in it, right? So that's the relationship between those tables in Campus Solutions. So I'm going to go into our class. And if it doesn't make sense, put it in the chat or, tell me to explain it a different way. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is a conversation. Okay. So I wanted to come out to our class because then it may help you to kind of put the pieces together. All right. So in our class, we have, if you look at the very top left corner, you see JFC and then a 4-digit number. That 4-digit number means summer. Okay. Then you see CIT 105. That's the class. Okay. We see our section number. Okay. For the class. And then we see our actual class number. all of this information in the top left corner of our Blackboard class is information that is pulled from Campus Solutions right into Blackboard. Okay. Now, Blackboard and Campus Solutions are two completely different systems managed by two completely different organizations. So how do they talk to one another? Well, there are PeopleSoft programmers, right? That make the connection possible on their end. And then there are Blackboard programmers that make the connection to PeopleSoft possible on the Blackboard end. So basically, they're making these two applications talk to one another. Okay. Again, they're solving a problem, right? So, so you kind of understand now, like how it's all coming together. It looks very seamless. It looks like it's one system, but actually it's multiple things going on behind the scenes to connect these two very, different two systems. Okay. Now, when we get into um, applications such as, and we can go down our details and actions list. Let me get into student to preview mode so that you will see exactly what you see when you log in to your class. Now on the details and actions menu, you see a list of things that we don't necessarily use on a day-to-day basis, right? For the class, but sometimes, like say for instance with Troy, your dedicated tutor, he uses Blackboard Collaborate, where you can simply click on join session and go into a room and talk with him, okay, about anything that you're confused about, right? So this Blackboard Collaborate actually was a completely separate program from Blackboard itself. And what they did was they married these two programs and made the programs talk to one another and work seamlessly together. Okay. Now, we've been using Blackboard Collaborate for like a decade, right? But in this version, it seems to be a little bit more stable, a little bit more integrated, whereas in previous years, there was always a problem, you know, or it seemed like there was always a problem with it. Okay. Now, the roster. The roster is pulling from Campus Solutions. So you're able to view everyone in your course, okay, simply by clicking on that view everyone in your course, and it's going to show each student. Okay, now look at this. It's telling me, because this is my student account, right, that my name as a student isn't on the list. Okay, and how it reads is, I'm not a student of the class, although I'm the instructor, right? But this is just a preview account. It's not really a full-on student account for my name. Okay, so I'm just going to close this, but it shows you all of the students in the class, and it's doing some funky things now. So let me close out of that. Okay. And I'm just going to refresh the content. Now, how you would refresh the content. If you get to Blackboard and you're experiencing some issues with Blackboard, you can very easily use one key on your keyboard, and that is the F5 key. Okay, you have a host of function keys at the top of your keyboard, beginning with escape. Okay, so so F1, F2, F3, F4, F5. Okay, F5 is your refresh key, function key. Okay, so does anyone know what the F1 key does on your keyboard? F1. Let me see if I see anyone commenting in the chat. No guesses? F1 on your keyboard is throughout most applications that are created for the Windows environment, is understood as the help. Okay, so if you get to an application and you need some help, you can always press the F1 key and the help system should come available. All right. Now, if we go down, continue down this list, well, it took me out of student preview mode. Let's get back into it. Okay. Now, because this class doesn't take attendance for your grade, you know, it's not going to necessarily show up, you know, for you to view your attendance. It'll probably show you how many different times you've logged in, okay, to Blackboard. It does keep a record of that. Okay, so it's good that, you know, you stay active in the class. Let's say, for instance, if in this class, I decided to break you out into small groups, okay, maybe 2 or 3 people in each group. This is where you would see those groups, okay? And all of this is a function of the Blackboard database, the database behind Blackboard that's powering Blackboard. And it has nothing to do with Campus Solutions, okay? Then we see an area for announcements, okay, where we can view past announcements, okay. Then we see an area for view course and institution tools, okay. This basically just means any apps that are not necessarily Blackboard, but maybe they're integrated with the Blackboard database to help us out in this class. Okay. Now, if we click on that, we get to see a list of these external tools. And of course, at the top of the list are tools in this course. Okay. So we know that we're using SimNet. Okay. Now, here are the other tools. We don't use these, but they're available to every Blackboard, every course that is on the Blackboard platform. Okay. And it is a sizable list of different applications. Okay. These are apps that are integrated with Blackboard, and it's basically up to your instructor to turn those on. Okay. Hopefully that makes sense. So even with Blackboard, there are apps just like the apps that you use on your mobile device, okay, or on your computer. Everything has apps, okay? And what apps do? Apps tend to extend the capabilities, you know, of what you're currently able to do. So that's what the books and course tools can do for us, okay, just on Blackboard. Does that make sense? Any questions? Any questions so far? Okay, so when you get into each class that you take, okay, the only part of the class that your instructor has complete control over on Blackboard is the course content area. So this is where all of your assignments will appear. Okay. Of course, how I have the class structured is into folders or modules, okay? And we're in the number 3, learn to create simple databases module, okay? So we see the numbering system, right? Now your live session today will appear just after the module introduction, okay? And also the one on Thursday will appear just beneath that. Okay, I've already sort of made room for it. But you see the structure, right? So the point here is not to necessarily walk you through the folder itself, but the structure. Okay, a database gives us structure. Okay, a database, of course, gives us a data source, which is our tables. Okay, it holds all the data. Then how do we actually, process the data or make the data or pull out information from the data? We create a query. Okay, how does a user, an end user, interact with the data? They interact with the data by using forms. Okay, and then what is the output basically of the data? That's in the form of a report. Okay, so those are the 4 objects in a database: tables, queries, forms, and reports. Okay, does that make sense? Anyone have any questions about that? You have to take yourself off mute, or you can type into the chat. Okay, seemingly there are no questions. Okay, but if you do have questions, please let me know. Of course, these things that are labeled 3.0, 3.3, 3.4, these are instructional documents, okay, to help frame your mind around databases. Of course, in the voice thread, I kind of walk you through creating a table, creating a query, creating a form, creating a report. And once you learn, how to sort of, create all of those individual objects, it'll begin to sort of make sense. Not only create them, but use them. Okay. So if you weren't aware, you're using Campus Solutions to log into MyPath with a username and password, the same as what you would use on Gmail. Okay. If you were to log into your Gmail account or Yahoo account, Outlook account, Hotmail, okay, all of those are database driven. Behind all of those systems where it requires a username or password, that's a database, okay, running that. It verifies if your username or password is correct. The same with your debit card, okay, or credit card. When you stroll up to the ATM, what happens when you put your card in and you input an incorrect PIN? Anyone know? Anyone ever done that before? I have. Actually, I shut down my account last weekend because I put in the PIN like wrong 3 times in a row. So I couldn't use my card over the weekend. I had to wait until after the holiday was over with and call the bank and like, I input the wrong PIN 3 times. Sorry. Okay. But anyone know, anyone ever experience inputting the wrong information multiple times and being locked out? Okay. If you've ever experienced that, you've interacted with a database. Okay. It happens to me all the time. What used to be funny to me was when I was on campus a lot and, teaching in-person classes. um, I would go to, type in my password after I had changed it and thinking, okay, yeah, I'm going to remember this. But when you hit 40, strange things begin to happen. You forget the little details, right? So I would be entering my password multiple times. I'm like, what is going on? I know I just changed this password. And it would be one letter or one symbol off. But I was interacting with PeopleSoft. PeopleSoft had a different password than what I was trying to type in, right? And so plenty of times I've been logged out or locked out and had to reset my password. So it happens to all of us. Did someone have a question? I heard something. Okay. Does any of this make any sense? Anyone confused about anything? Anything that I need to, I guess, delve a little more deeply into? Any questions? Any comments? Any concerns? It's completely possible that you have questions or comments or concerns with databases. Okay, so to bring it back full circle, okay, for you, we started off talking about what programmers do, um, you know, what they create, all of that. I would say that creating a database is the same thing as creating an actual um, application. Okay. And you may wonder, well, how is that possible? Well, Microsoft is very sort of what's the word? Intelligent group they are. Okay. They created a visual application so that you can understand what programming is. Okay. So you build a database, you build a table. A table is basically a receptacle or a container for the data. Then you question the data, you sort through the data, right, with the queries. Okay. Or you can calculate with queries as well. So you're processing using queries, right? Then you interact with the data that is in the table, okay, with a form, and then you get the results with a report, okay? So Access is showing you what all is involved in creating an actual full-on application, okay? Now, if we were to sort of get the code or the programming behind the scenes of an Access database, then you could actually see, what's happening, as far as the code is concerned. Um, so, and maybe I'll do that with a simple database. And let's see, someone's coming in. Well, it's showing me someone's waiting. Let's see. Well, it's not letting me see it. So, um, so hopefully this all makes sense to you. If you have any additional questions, comments or concerns about Access, Access is one of those, it can be complex units, But if you, take the time, study it up front, especially chapter 1, learning how to create tables, queries, forms, reports. If you understand the basics, the other chapters will be, will be that much easier. Okay. And so next time we're going to use the entire class the next time to delve into different types of queries. Okay, so you're going to see queries in, created live, and, different types of queries. So you can see what it is that we're trying to extract from the data that is in our tables. Okay. Any parting thoughts? Troy, are you still on here?
Yes, I'm here.
Awesome. You want to talk about your tutoring?
I'm here. uh, Basically, if you need any assistance, just let me know. I mean,
Yeah. So because do you have access to share your tutoring flyer?
I don't. Let me see. I didn't. Sorry, I didn't prepare for that. Let me.
Oh no, you're good. You're good.
Let me try to pull it up again. I know I tried the other day. Hold on.
Mm-hmm. So while Troy is getting that together, does anyone have any questions or comments about anything that was covered today? Anything at all? How do you feel about databases right now? Just by having, I see that. Okay. Yeah, it can be a complex, topic, but if you understand, databases is really showing you what programming is all about. Okay. Then it'll make that much more sense. Even the games that we play, they're database driven. Okay. All those different actions that we play with the little I want to call it stick because that's how I learned on an Atari. But the game controller, all of those actions are listed somewhere in that you know that game's databases. Okay, so everything we do computer wise, technology wise, is database driven. Got it, Troy?
I do.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm working on my Mac, and so you know how that Mac can be.
Oh yes. Don't you just love Max?
Not at all.
You're hysterical.
I do have a quick question.
Sure, go ahead.
So for the homework that's due on this 13th, I kind of started it, but I'm kind of confused on it.
Okay.
So I know we do the sim book, right? But then we also have to do a project. So basically,
Right.
I'm doing like an Excel sheet, right?
No, it's an access database. So when you follow the link for the project, and let me bring up one. Great question. Let me, because mine opens up a little differently. So I have to get to it a little differently. So give me a moment.
Yeah, because I was having a lot of computer trouble last night. I usually use a MacBook. For some reason,
Mhm.
it's not working. I've been having it for like 9 years now.
Right. Access will not work on a Mac unless you have a virtual machine set up on that Mac. And so all Macs should come with a program called Boot Camp. Okay, Boot Camp is a virtual environment to where you should be able to run Access, but it's not guaranteed. Also, there's another program called Parallels that you can get a 14-day free trial on if you're running a Mac. But, I don't provide any support for that. You know what I'm saying? Like, because I don't own a Mac. I just know that it works because I've seen it.
Yeah, I mean, I just couldn't do it on there, so I'm using the HP they gave me. But
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
have some questions about it. Like I did like the what's it called? The live one, and then so I'm on skill 1.2, working with security warnings, and so I'm just trying to figure that out.
Okay. So here is probably what you saw when you got to the project, correct? That first project after chapter 1. So in step 1, you want to make sure to download the file. So when you download the file, how you do that is click on Start File. I would say in this download area, I don't know what my computer is doing. Do you all see my screen?
Nope.
Okay.
No.
It pulled me out of there. Hold on.
Okay.
Okay, do you see it now?
Yes.
Okay. So on this screen here, you see what is your project window. Okay. And so when you click on that link back here on Blackboard, chapter 1, Challenge Yourself 1.4, this is what it's going to link to. Okay. So you have 3 steps here. The first one, of course, is to get the file. Okay. Your file for a project is called a start file. So you click on the start file link. In step 1, though, as you progress through the projects, you may see another link that is listed in step 1 called Download File Wizard or File Download Wizard. Yeah, that's it. File Download Wizard. Sorry. And if you see the File Download Wizard in step 1, use that one instead because it'll get everything. The start file only gets that project file. It doesn't get any additional files that may be associated with the project. Okay. So once you download the file, I'm just going to click on it here. When you click on Start File, did you see down at the bottom of the window? It says this type of file can harm your computer. Do you want to keep? And then it gives you your name, your first name dot your last name dot ACCDB anyway. Okay. Now, all of these files that come on SimNet are trustworthy. They've been used by other students and they're fine. I would say in any other environment, you want to be very suspect of any type of website that you would get a database file from, because a database file can contain viruses. Okay. And so you want to be very cautious of that. But for the sake of this, all these SimNet projects are safe. So you would just click on keep. Okay.
Okay.
When you click on keep, you see that the file shows up in a little, a little square or tile. And from there, you could actually click on it to either open it or show in a folder. If you click show in a folder, where do you think it's going to take you to?
Folder.
Nope, it's not going to show you all your folders on your computer, just one, and that's the downloads folder. Okay, so all of your files that you're going to get from SimNet go into the downloads area. Okay, so but if you click open, it's going to open that file in the Microsoft Access application. And remember, at the beginning on the syllabus, that preparation step 1, you were to download the Microsoft 365 apps. Okay, Access was part of those apps. Okay, so it's going to open in Access.
So I think I did it differently because I downloaded that onto my MacBook, and that since it's not working properly, I have to get someone to get fixed. But I would download that to the HP.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, Mac. I would say Access is a little too much for Macs, and so that's why you need something to run interference in between Access and an Apple or Mac computer, and that's what the virtual machine software does. It kind of, is a go-between to help, because the Macs were really built on the idea of using pictures, and Access is not, an image sort of machine. It is data. You know what I'm saying? Big data. So yeah.
Okay. And
Looks
quick
like,
question before we leave.
yeah, go ahead.
I can text the TA, right? I can text Rice, Mr. Rice, right?
Yeah, Troy, did you ever find your file?
I found
Can you?
it. Won't let me display. Hold on, here we go.
Okay. But yeah, you can contact Troy. I'm not for sure if he's available with text. Troy, can you speak to that?
Once we call this number, the 23, I don't know if y'all can see it. Can you see it?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, once you call me at this number, then I'll return your call and it'll give you my number and you can text me from there. You can text this number too. I can receive texts as well there. But so I just had to type it because the flyer I created for some reason is duplicating itself, and you can see this now. I know. So here's my email contact. Here's my phone number. Here's the hours I'm available. But I'm available generally at any time that I'm available. I have other appointments and things like that. But just call me and we'll work out something.
Okay, thank you.
Sounds good. Thanks, Troy. Any other questions or, comments, concerns about anything we covered today? Anything I can help with?
Miss Jacobs.
Yes.
Yes, I'm sorry for my delay today. I had a doctor's appointment and then I had a power outage. I wanted to know, did you see did I make up a lot of ground? 'Cause I was kind of behind on this, and reason I was behind because I got mixed up on when I went to my modules, I didn't see that arrow to the right, and that's why had a kind of slow start getting everything finished.
Oh, on Blackboard.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I haven't looked to, at anyone's grades or anything
Okay.
Since like yesterday, and I didn't really like pay attention.
Okay.
But but I mean, as long as you're doing something,
Right.
you're good.
Okay.
You're good.
Okay. Great.
It's when you stop doing is
Right.
is where the problems come. Okay.
Well,
Uh,
it took me 4 hours to get caught up to be current with this week.
oh, okay. Awesome.
I mean,
Awesome.
I'm not that computer literate, but that's why I'm taking this class. So
Yeah. Yeah. I get it. I get it. Well, look, at least you can laugh about it,
yeah,
right?
right.
And that gives
Get it.
others hope in this class that they can get caught up if it only took you
Yeah.
4 hours. So if you
Right.
dedicate 4 hours, you can probably catch up.
Yeah.
Right. Well, case in point, of course, we've been working in this class this is week 3, right? So I had a traditional summer class to start yesterday, okay, at 12 p.m. And I have students in that class that have already finished all of the, what is that, Learn Computing Basics activities. So
Wow.
it is completely possible to sit down, like you said, for 4 hours
Right.
and get and plow through, a lot of those sim books.
Right.
Once you get on a roll,
Yeah.
it's easy. It's easy.
I don't want that workload no more though. I want to take care of
I
it.
hear you. I hear you. Any other questions or comments before I go? Well, I look forward to our session on Thursday. Um, and, if you have any questions, of course, you can always email me. Troy just gave you his contact information. He's going to be on until, 1, just strictly for you guys. So if you have questions, of course, send those questions to him. He's a resource for you. And so, just I hope that, all works out for you in the access unit. Okay. Because from the onset, it looks very complex, but once you start doing it, it becomes a lot easier. Okay. So just get in there and start taking your notes and then doing those let me tries. Whatever you can't do the let me try on, simply, go through the video, the show me and the guide me, and then try the let me try again. Okay. The good thing about it is you can practice this stuff multiple times. So, the sim books are open for you to do unlimited practicing. Okay. So like with anything, um, you know, it takes practice. And that's really what it's all about. Okay. All righty. Well, you guys have a good one, and I'll definitely see you on Thursday. All righty.